evening, everybody. I am Dustin Woods. I am the managing editor for Canada Moto Guide and a Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival judging panelist for the third year in a row now. And I will be your host for this evening's Q&A. This is an exciting one for us this evening. It's an all-Canadian panel. This year, there were 47 films submitted, including a record 12 Canadian films. So that's definitely great to see. This evening, I am joined by a number of filmmakers and cast members from films that were accepted into the final round of judging, and some of which were viewed at the Review Cinema Roncesvalles last week, and also will be available for viewing online. So I'm joined by Genevieve Chartrand, director, and Roxanne Bergeron, cast member of Motoluv, and Christopher Darton, director, and Angie Sandow, cast member and, shall I say, star of the film Angie, Tales of Determination, and Jason Hamborg, director of Route 16 Ramble, and David Porteous, 257 Down. David, what would you call yourself?
I would call myself a filmmaker, and
Okay.
David as well.
Oh, David, okay, yeah. What did I call you? I'm sorry.
Documentary filmmaker and musician.
Okay. Okay, gotcha, okay. I thought I called you by the wrong name or something when you said I call yourself David. So okay,
no.
Yeah. In regards to the film, anyhow, I wasn't sure if you would consider yourself the cameraman / director / auteur / because it seemed like you did a number of things on it.
In this case, yeah, you could say musician, you could say catering, security, all would apply.
You're doing craft services.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the food was fantastic, if anyone's asking.
Excellent. That's perfect. Is Alex going to be joining us this evening or not?
No, he's unable to make it tonight.
Okay, gotcha. It was great to see the two of you chatting at the screening on the weekend. So I enjoyed watching the film on the big screen. It was very moving. Anyways, I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I suppose I will start with Motoluv, I guess, which is essentially, it's a story of three women on a motorcycle journey. Roxanne, who's joined us, and Veronique and Catherine, and sharing different stories about how they fell in love with motorcycles. So how did this film come about?
Well, okay.
We've got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. Walk us through it.
Well, it's because of Roxanne, first of all. I met this woman 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Let me know, Rex, if I'm right. I met her on a party, and I was like, well, we have to tell your story, and we have to go on a trip and make up a road trip movie. So that was the idea at first.
Gotcha. And so then how did the other two women come into it after that?
Roxanne, can you tell how Catherine and Veronique joined us? Do you remember?
Oh, I think you're on mute, actually.
I think we were talking. Oops. Yeah, I think we were talking together, and I met Catherine the year before we made the movie in a moto social with Veronique as well. She was in the Litas, in Quebec Litas. So that's, I think, when we talk about doing a film about women on motorcycle, I present you those girls.
Gotcha. And so those were the ones that you decided to include.
That's the one that wanted to be part of it, because we talked with some others also, but some are shy, some doesn't want to be on front row, and some just want to ride and not stop all the time to redo the shot. So that's how we left together in the Catskills. And is that the way we call it, Rox?
No, that's the Catskills. Yeah. And that was the venue of the Babes Ride Out, the first one of the East Coast. So it was a great spot to go for that movie.
And what stands out as your favorite? Excuse me. What stands out as your favorite part of the film? Either of you.
I'll let you start.
My favorite part was when Roxanne was okay because she had an accident during the shoot, and we had to stop the shoot. Actually, we didn't have to, but we decided to stop the shoot, and she had an accident with a deer. And then when we knew that she was okay, she was fine, that was the best part of the trip. But with the movie, I guess what the movie is right now, what I really like the best, it's that it's just an ordinary life, people doing the stuff they like. It's not like fireworks, like big thing going on. It's just like ordinary life. It's just en français, in French we say it's une tranche de vie. It's a slice of life, and it's really humble, and that's what I like.
Certainly, yeah. It struck me as very authentic. It didn't seem like there was any acting. It seemed like it was very organic and an accurate portrayal of friends and women riding motorcycles in my limited experience with that.
It was that. Actually, it was weird for me because I've seen the movie like a few weeks ago. It's been 4 years now, and I had that crash with the deer. So I'm a deer resistant, really happy. And so it was really, really weird to see me in that film talking about my focus and talking about how what motorcycle does for me in my life, and what's the point about riding a motorcycle, about the liberty, the road that I can choose and everything. And to see that
4 years later.
For 4 years after, and seeing myself saying, yeah, when I'm on my bike, I'm really focused, I really look about every danger on the road and blah, blah, blah. And remember that 15 minutes after that call, I just was, I didn't hit a deer. The deer ran after me and come into my my rear wheel. So
wow.
It was really unpredictable. And in that point, it makes me think a lot about my journey on a motorcycle and why I'm doing that, and if I still want to ride motorcycle. And yes, the answer is yes. After 3 weeks after the crash, I called my dad, and I was okay. It's time to go back on a bike. So it was a weird, a funny, and a lot of knowledge in that. That period, and
that's a scary experience. I've been in a similar one, so I'm glad you're okay. What would be different now if you were to be talking to the camera and you were to be explaining your motivation for riding? How would the experience be different of you telling your story after hitting the deer? With 4 years of hindsight.
It's been there's a lot of things happen in that 4 years. I've participated also in a Fille de Moto, which is a TV show in Quebec, or in Canada, actually, in French. And I think the idea will be probably the same, but maybe less confident, less like I'm okay, I'm good on a bike. It's been like I've done that all my life, Even if you ride since like 20 years. You don't know. You never know.
Mm-hmm. So you'd be a little more humble.
A little more humble, yeah. Even if we were like, it wasn't like a show about not a show, but a film about we're rock. We were women riding bike. It was really more about like how we feel about what's our relationship with motorcycle, and so. Still in love with motorcycles. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad you're still with it and got back on the horse, so to speak. So did you make it to Babes Ride Out?
No, I didn't. That's why in the movie we've seen Catherine with other women for the the amazing roads of the Catskills, because actually I had a crash with the deer, but I also touched Veronique, so Veronique's bike, so she wasn't able to continue the road to the Babes Right Out. So we passed 2 days in the hospitals.
Wow. So Genevieve, why did you decide not to include any of that in the story?
Because it was not like journalism or like sensational movie I wanted to make. Yeah. The idea was not to cover, it was really personal. When we saw her on the ground, or how do you say, comment on dit ça?
Ground.
When she was on the ground, the sun was so hot. The ground was really burning her. Like she was all her left side was scratched. We could see through her clothes, and it was like blood. It was like, okay, like let's just rap and focus on the human
side.
Take care.
That's why probably it took you a bit to make the movie, to try to figure out how you can do something with that those dimensions you got.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't have any rushes or images to do the movie I had in mind when we left on the road for a week. I had only the interviews and a couple of shots. So I was like, I have nothing. I cannot do a movie anymore. And 4 years later, with the pandemic and the going like back, and I was like, no, I need to just do something out of it, and I need to do it for the girls and for the I don't know how to say it in English, pour s'en souvenir, for the memory. And the respect of that. It exists. Okay. So let's just show it to the world.
Totally. Well, maybe one day it would fit into another project you're working on, although that sounds rather gory. I don't know if I want to see it, but it would be educational of why we wear riding gear, and could serve as a public service announcement.
Yes.
So Jason Hamborg, the director of Rumble 16. How do you do, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
So you are joining us from, are you in Prince George?
I am, yeah. I'm in Prince George, BC, which is kind of like dead center of the province out here on the West Coast.
Right, and I would say that generally you have better riding weather than we do, but you mentioned before we got on the live stream here that you're actually getting snow in the forecast this week.
Yeah, we have actually a motorcycle piece that we're shooting starting next Monday, and when I booked everything for it, it was like looking okay, and then I checked the weather this morning and it was 2 degrees and snowy, and I'm sad now.
Yeah,
but we're gonna get through it.
Are there any snowmobile film festivals that you could submit something to?
Right, yeah, I'll put a track kit on the bike and just go for it.
Exactly. There you go. So Route 66 Rumble, I'll let you talk a little bit about it, but essentially it's about 4 riders that embark on a 1,000-kilometer journey from Prince George to the Pacific Coast, Prince Rupert. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting project in the fact that it was originally came to us as a tourism piece. That was kind of the main way that we were able to fund the film. But we were really lucky in the fact that we basically went back to the tourism group and said, hey, like, this is cool enough. These people that you're thinking about bringing are cool enough. Like, we need to make this not lame. We need to try to make this something that's like authentic and something that as a motorcyclist I want to watch and other people want to watch. And they were on board, like, sure, kind of do your thing.
So what was the end use? What was the end use supposed to originally be? Was it going to be like social media content or like a story somewhere, or?
Yeah, they wanted to do like a web series, like a series of like kind of 60 to 2 minute, like 60-second to 2 minute little web series with it. And like really messaging heavy on like, wow, it's beautiful. Like that was like all they cared about necessarily.
Right.
And it's like, I think, luckily having me involved as a motorcycle rider, like, you can see through that so quickly. And then when I got a chance to actually meet the cast, we jumped on calls and we're chatting to them, and I knew I wanted to do something, and they were all just like such authentic, like real motorcyclists, like complete diehards. And it was like, okay, well, I know that the location is going to completely like blow their mind. So that'll be the easy part. The tourism piece will be the easy part. Now it's about how do I kind of unwrap things and get a little bit deeper into what they get out of the motorcycle experience out, like regardless of where they are. And that was kind of what I was trying to do throughout it, was explore them as riders and kind of their dynamic, because I think on a trip of that nature, like we went over 1,000 kilometers, and either 1,000 kilometers as just a motorcycle trip is hard, and then also 1,000 kilometers as like a motorcycle filming trip is hard in its own way. Like even earlier mentioning that idea of, okay, well, that was great, we got to turn back because I want the bikes positioned a little bit differently and that sort of thing. And it definitely wears on people. So I was able to kind of explore the dynamic that kind of the group, a group can make or break a motorcycle trip, right? Like if you have one bad egg, it becomes a bummer really, really fast. So I was lucky because they made my life easy. They all like were super rad to get along with each other and with our crew and everything. And then, just such good times. So it was like, keep the cameras rolling because there's always just good stuff happening, and it was fun.
Definitely. So did you have multiple shooters? Like how were you, or do you send up drones, or, how did you manage to capture all that? Because it seemed from the end user as fairly seamless of like, the whole thing, just organically experiencing it through kind of the rider's eyes.
Yeah, we had, there was a crew of four people. Kind of, I was producer, but then also like stunt filmer. So I was really lucky. I experimented. I got on the back of everyone's bike in like small doses, kind of like around town filming. And then I landed on Kat, who was kind of like, we all joke, she was like the mom of the group. And she was the one lady who I was like, Kat's not going to do anything stupid with me on the back of the bike. So I was like the stunt filmer guy. And then we had our other two camera operators and photographers there kind of doing their thing. So it was planned out in a lot of ways, but then at the same time, when over 1,000 kilometers, like you're not location scouting or anything, you're just like, you have to know the tone that you want and kind of the story you're trying to tell. And then as soon as you get to that spot, it's like, what's the way that we shoot this place to give us that tone, to give us that emotion? And that's what we tried to do.
Wow. So you didn't scout it beforehand?
No, we've through other projects over the years, like we've spent little chunks of time in some of the communities and stuff, but the other producer on it was like the main client, so they were the one kind of putting us in the locations they wanted us to be in. And it was a matter of like, you'd show up and just kind of hope that you could get somewhere before the light got good, and then like come up with a really loose plan and then try to execute. And it definitely it wears on the riders as well as the crew, right? Because we shot that project in like early September, and up north here in early September, it's not as bad as shooting something like midsummer, but definitely still the days are long. So you're trying to get up before sunrise at like 4:30, and then you're not going to bed or you're not done shooting until like 10, because you're trying to shoot those big like nice light windows. So
yeah, definitely.
It's tiring, but then you get to the end and you're happy.
Yeah, I'm sure. So how long did it take you to ride that journey? Like how long did it take you to film it and do the ride?
It was shot over the course of, oh man, I should know that. I want to say it was shot over the course of 9 days. And then we had our drive back day, and we just kind of got a couple pickups and stuff, like drone shots of some scenery and stuff that we knew we needed. Because once you get to Prince Rupert, it's a kind of a one-way out, one-way back kind of thing. A lot of people who do the big journey will actually come up to Prince George, and then they'll come across all the way out to the coast, and then they'll get on a ferry and actually ride a ferry back down to like Vancouver area.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned about Kat being kind of the mama bear and not doing anything to scare you. Did Chris or Mikey do anything with you on the back that didn't make it into the film that scared you?
Yeah, I didn't even bother getting on with Chris, because like instantly, like day one, he's just doing burnouts, and it was funny too, because we had to source the bikes. Like the cast, they came from Buffalo, and then some of them were from Cleveland. So we sourced all the bikes locally, and we were able to rent like 3 brand new bikes. But then there's this one Dyna that it was actually one of our clients' bikes, and she was just luckily she was like, yeah, you guys can use it. And then of course we put Chris on it, and he's doing like burnouts and just like bouncing off the rev limiter the whole way. And it was like, she's texting me because she's getting like all these behind the scenes like Instagram stories that she's seeing her bike just getting rallied. So I never got on the bike with Chris, but one night we were shooting like kind of late into the night, and Mikey just started like really going like fast, and there's nothing really you can do when you're on the back of the bike. You're kind of just like, all right, well, this is my life now. Yeah. But we had a pretty stern discussion when I got back. I was like, I don't need to die for this project. And like, it's not like being on an interstate somewhere in like East Coast US. Like if a moose came out, or a deer, like you're done, like straight up, you're done. And we were on like a road that didn't deserve the kind of speeds we were going. So that was a nice, awkward conversation that we got to have. But then after that, I just knew that it was cat only for my shuttles.
Gotcha. So for those who haven't ridden it, what is Route 16? What is it like?
It's really it's pretty remarkable in the sense of like just how much the geography changes from one end of this to the other. You basically start in the Canadian Rockies. It's like right near Mount Robson, which is the tallest peak in the Canadian Rockies. And then you come across and through, and Prince George is kind of, I would argue, the most generic northern community. We just have a real mix of everything. But as you work your way out, you kind of go through the prairies and then slowly up into the mountains. And then once you pass through the coastal mountains, you come out onto the coast, and you're in Prince Rupert, which is like a really quaint, fishing community with like a port and everything there. So it's really kind of crosses everything. And then at one point we actually made our way north up into a place called the Nass Valley, and it's actually the home of the most recent volcanic eruption site in North America. Happened like a couple hundred years ago or something like that, maybe 1,000 years ago or so. So yeah, that's just like riding on the moon. It's super, super weird. So yeah, very, very geographically diverse, which is great as a filmmaker. Like I said, you're never really fighting much of an uphill battle. There's obviously the weather, which makes things challenging, but if we planned our locations well, you can kind of just point a camera in any direction, and it's like, great, we don't have to worry about that. We can just focus on the story, which is awesome.
Yeah, nice. So it's funny that you mentioned that there was some tourism support for it, and sort of started as a tourism piece, because being the editor for Canada Moto Guide, I often get invited by tourism boards to experience different areas, and it's always kind of a challenge to not have it come off as a marketing piece. But when I was watching the film, there were a few things that came off to me that I'm sure nobody else would have picked up on as things that were sort of like tourism board experiences of like hopping on a float plane and things like that. That I was kind of like that seemed like something that was sort of inserted, that I'm sure added to the experience, and I'm sure added to their experience of like being very much a Canadian, a Canadian experience. Anyways, it was sort of interesting, something that struck me. But so if riders were to be planning that trip, would you have advice for something that you learned from that trip? or if somebody else was to replicate it, of like to not do it on that kind of bike, or like obviously not ride with Chris.
No, ride with Chris. It's great.
Yeah.
You just hang back and you watch the insanity happen, and you're like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of like any motorcycle trip. Take as much time as you can afford, basically, because there's something obviously in some of these trips. It's cool to say you did a certain thing in a short amount of time. But I think the more time you can take and the more people you can talk to and experiences you can have with the locals. I think one thing that's kind of fun about Northern BC, and one of the things that I'm always excited when people come here, is we're not saturated with people. We're not saturated with tourism. So it's like, if people do come through, it's exciting. Like, it's exciting for some of these small communities. Like, they're going to go home and be like, I met somebody from the United States today. Which
I met an American.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, just kind of as much time as you can take to do the trip and just talk to people, because people are excited to show people around and show them what we have.
So you guys were like minor celebrities when you were showing up to some of these places?
Yeah, you roll in and people see a camera. We have a car mount rig that mounts to the front of the van, and it just looks like this big like Cyclops arm thing. And you get definitely some crazy looks when you're cruising around town.
I'm sure. So when was that filmed? Because I'm sure it was obviously pre-pandemic.
Yep, it was filmed in September of 2019.
Okay.
And same sort of thing. Like, by the time we finished on post-production on it, it was queued up to be released in the spring of 2020. And obviously we know what happened there. And so we it was kind of an awkward distribution. Like, there was so much around the messaging and everything as we were trying to push this thing out, where it was like all the asterisks that came with people not just like roasting us for promoting people traveling from out of the country and stuff. But
I'm sure, it's been very delicate trying to explain to people like what you can and cannot do, and being like, this is a great place to visit once you're able. Like,
eventually,
be attentive to your local social distancing guidelines and restrictions. Professional riders on a closed course do not try at home.
Yeah, exactly.
So awesome, very cool. Okay, so we have Chris Darton and Angie Sandow from Angie Tales of Determination. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So you guys want to explain what this film was about for people who may not have seen it? Give us the quick elevator pitch for people who should take a look and watch it online.
Go ahead. Okay, well, for those that don't know, so I was born with a limb difference, and I always loved motorcycles since I was a little girl. And it was always going to be one day I'd ride my own. And back when I was born, there wasn't social media and stuff like that. So growing up, I had a moped, and then wanted to get into a motorcycle, but they couldn't modify one for me. Life took over, and the years go by very, very quickly. In 2014, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that motivated me to say, you know what, you can't always wait for tomorrow. You hope it's going to come, but it might not. So instead of saying one day, you got to do something about it. So I decided to make a film about breast cancer motivating me to ride a motorcycle, and the steps that I had to take to get onto my own motorcycle, because I just felt it was a really good story, and I love to share my story in the hopes that I can inspire others that anything is possible.
Definitely. Well, that would be a wake-up call for sure. And so what has the response been from the film?
Well, I've received a lot of feedback that it really helps people to realize the things that they can accomplish. And aside from the motorcycle, I'm a musician as well. So I had an AC/DC trip band, and I used to wear a prosthetic to play. And the people that you meet and the stories that you hear, it's unbelievable. And I just felt that the world is becoming such an angry place, that if there's something that I can bring some positive energy to help people recognize what's truly possible. And if not for that motorcycle, I honestly don't know how I would have got through some of the stuff that I went through as a result of the treatment and everything like that. So so the feedback was very positive, and as a result of it, I've met so many amazing people. And the one thing about the motorcycle community is I never ever felt judged, by my appearance. I was just accepted right away.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you had your first motorcycle adapted, and then you moved to a larger motorcycle.
Correct.
Do you want to give a shout out to the guys who helped you modify your bike?
Sure. Well, my first motorcycle was a Honda Rebel 300, and it was Todd Topper from Mission Cycle on Angus that I was connected with. And I just was talking to him the other day because, these bikes are all cable throttle. And now they're fly-by-wire, right? So I said, Todd, you got to start thinking, because one of these days I'm going to want to buy another motorcycle. So you better start thinking about how you're going to make that happen. But we had a centrifugal force clutch installed, so it kind of made it like an automatic. I would still shift, and the throttle was kind of like a finger throttle. It was actually it was called a Goldfinger, and he MacGyvered it, and so it was a finger throttle. When I got the Shadow, which was a heavier bike, we went to a thumb throttle. Now I ride a Honda CTX, which I had to export from the States and import. And John Cosentini from Motorcycle Enhancements helped me modify that one. So I've been very fortunate to meet these guys.
Yeah, that's great. And did you have any experiences where you sort of questioned whether you would be able to do it? Like, did you have any moments where you were like, I might not be able to maneuver this bike with one arm? Or was it more like convincing other people like, yeah, no, I got this. Like, what are you worried about me for?
Well, do you know what? When I was doing my training on the last day, the Sunday, when we're being evaluated, you still had some training in the beginning of it, and we were doing tight turns and the bike went down. And I just got really discouraged. I mean, the guys picked me up, my instructors and whatnot, but you just start to think, and as I gain more confidence with my riding over the years, I recognize that some of the challenges that I have, like gravel, those that know me, well, I hate gravel. It's not just me, and it's not because of this, but just recently we did Ride for Dad, my husband and I, and there's a road, McNeely Road. And for those of you that aren't familiar, it's in Hamilton, and it's one of these switchback things. And as we're going down this thing, I'm cursing the whole way, and then my hubby can hear me because we got the car doors, and I'm just cursing, and I did it. So I felt really good after. But one of the things that he tells me, and a few of my friends will tell me, is that I'm very hard on myself.
Yeah. And
just to kind of relax and let it happen. Sometimes I just say to myself, am I going to be able to do this? But after what I just did the other day, every ride that you do, you gain more confidence. So I never felt that I couldn't really do it because I'm riding with one hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it's amazing to have supportive people in the community. And I'm glad that, as a woman as well, I've heard from various people that it's not always the most welcoming community. So I'm glad that you have found a different version of that. That's great to hear. What was it like to see yourself up on screen?
It was a little hard sometimes, and parts of the very beginning, because the very beginning was very emotional because when those pictures came up when I was a little girl, that really it started the tears, because I always wanted my parents to be a part of this, but they passed before any of this happened. And to be honest, if they knew I was riding a motorcycle right now, I don't know what they would say, because they were always nervous, even when I had the moped. But seeing that, and then the end of the film, when I just had this vision that I just wanted to get everybody together. The one thing that, is not in the film, but I will never forget, are all the people that came to my home to ride to our final shoot location. Yeah. And that meant the world to me. And I'll never forget the support that I had from everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So Diane Jankovics just said that Angie was my inspiration to ride.
Hi, Diane.
You know Diane?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
She's actually in the film. She was kind enough to be interviewed in the film.
Okay, gotcha. That's great. So Chris, what are your thoughts on the film? What do you have to say about the project?
Well, I got a lot to say on the project. Angie and Lloyd are fantastic people, and I've had a really good experience with the documentaries I've shot. That nothing is ever cut and dry. You never finish a project, and then that's it. A relationship forms, and 7, 8, 9 years later, you're still friends with that person because you've entered their life kind of intimately and told their story, and you kind of instantly become part of the family, and they become part of yours. So we shot this over a small period of time. Due to COVID, we really had to kind of tap dance around how we did things and that. But I'll be friends with Angie and Lloyd for years to come. That's just the way it is. That's the nature of the way I've done things, and I enjoy that. With regards to how the project came about, Angie certainly wanted to make a film, and I recognized her passion right away, and certainly her story was an interesting one. But it was kind of funny that we have a mutual friend, and he contacted me and said, I've got a friend looking for a documentary. Are you interested? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm ready to cut. I've just done 6 or 7 films in a row. I think I'm ready to branch out a little bit. He said, well, would you at least talk to her? I said, of course I will. Of course. So the Sunday morning, I remember it quite well, that I was scheduled to talk to Angie. I came downstairs to my dungeon office, and I said to my wife, I'm going to go talk to Angie. I don't know how long it'll be, but just so you know, I won't be making this film. And about an hour and 20 minutes later, I came upstairs and said, well, I guess I'm making a new documentary. and that's a testament to Angie. And it's she's passionate, and she exudes the fact that not only is her story interesting and her story is important, but it's one that should be told. And we immediately connected, and and like many other people, I gotta say, she told me what she wanted to do. Do we want to tell the whole Angie story, or do we want to streamline it a little bit into a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but the motorcycle Angie story? And that's what she wanted, and she let me go. She gave me names. We should talk to this person. You should talk to that person. And I went off and did that. And like most of the docs I've made, it was just really organic. I kind of knew where it might go or where it could go, and I just built it from the ground up out of the interview process. And it was really sweet in that sense. Angie didn't sit over my shoulder and say, oh, this should go in or this shouldn't go in. She let me tell the story, and that I sent it to her, and we tweaked it and modified it and stuff like that. But it was I've been fortunate. It was just another wonderful documentary process. I've been very, very fortunate to work with really, really good people, and this was just another instance. I don't know motorcycles, but my documentary before this was about suicides correlated with Niagara Falls, and I didn't know a lot about that. And a documentary before that was about a world-renowned ornithologist / naturalist / philosopher / professional gambler / musician, commonly known probably as the most interesting man in the world, like from the commercials. Mm-hmm. I didn't know him at all either. So it was they're all a learning experience, and I love the relationships that get built from them. So yeah, this was a great experience. I loved working with Angie, and of course Lloyd, and meeting their extended motorcycle family. that was an important part of it because, you know, Angie stresses the fact that, you know, that family accepted her wholeheartedly, and really it's changed her life. So that's an important aspect of the story. So that hopefully that kind of came out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that it would change the projects that you'll take on in the future?
I don't know. You know, documentary is a funny thing. I mean, all of us make documentaries, and you know, we're always kind of just looking for a good story. I made a couple of music documentaries, and I probably could have ridden off into the sunset making music documentaries forever because there's a million great stories out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, as things happen, the tides changed a little bit. A couple of other stories presented themselves to me, and I kind of went off in that direction. But you know, really, every documentary I've made has kind of been built from the ground up. It's we've kind of had our eye on the prize of where the story's going, but it was really kind of came about organically. So I kind of like doing things that way. When you're working on a low budget, it's an interesting road to go. And then, you know, the other thing I do is I produce and make horror films. So yeah, I'm very kind of all over the map.
Yeah, wow, sounds like it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm shooting my first feature right now, actually.
You sound like one of the most interesting men in the world.
Yeah.
Going back to Angie for a second. So you learned how to play the guitar. You started riding a motorcycle. It seems like, you know, whatever you set your mind to, you accomplish. What's next? Do you have something else on your bucket list that you?
I do. I'm currently in the process of moving into inspiration, you know, to share my story. I've been approached by the Rally in the Rockies in Calgary, Alberta, to speak at their event next year. I'm working with Atlanticade as well. I would have been in Americade this year if the land border, if we could have crossed.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book right now called From Chemo to Throttle.
Oh, wow.
Kind of tells more of the story. So I've got a lot in the works, and I'm working now on trying to get sponsorship and whatnot for the ride that I'm organizing from Ontario to Alberta, which will probably start kind of like July-ish timeframe and end up in Calgary mid-August, which is when the Rally in the Rockies starts. So a lot going on and planning for the motorcycle shows. I'm very happy that those are going to be happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so a lot going on. And one thing, if you don't mind, if I could just throw in that Chris did that, and I didn't know he was filming. And when I watched the movie, I remember that moment was when I was talking about dumping the bike at a gas station.
Mm.
And I was so emotional that morning because that's what happened. I went to fill the bike up, I dumped it, and he just got that. I didn't even know he was filming that.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, yeah. That hit home.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot going on right now.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, it happens to everybody, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
we're all our own greatest critics.
Right.
But you know, even on Wednesday, a friend of mine, you know, slow maneuvering around a parking lot, dumped it, and of course he feels terrible, and you know, nobody wants to do it, but it happens to the best of us, right? So
Well, you know what they say, right? If you say you haven't dumped your bike, you're lying.
yeah. Exactly. Or if you haven't, you will.
You will, exactly. Yes.
Totally. So we had a question from a viewer for Jason. So did Jason pick the cast or writers, or were they already chosen for the project? If he chose them, how did he select them and why?
I'm going to make this short. I did not get a chance to choose them. No, which in itself is kind of interesting because it's either you get to choose who you want to work with for a certain reason, or you are told who you get to work with, and then you have to kind of try and find that story and find that angle a little bit. So yeah, no, it was here's who you get, make something work.
Right. And so how did the story change from the original plan once you met the riders? Like, what was sort of planned as part of the scope, and what was spontaneous, and how did it change?
I think probably I'll come back to that idea that, like, if they said, hey, here's who we're working with, and they were lame, I probably would have phoned it in a little bit, or at least done it to the scope that was originally presented. But as soon as I was able to have those conversations and realize how much of a disservice it would be to those riders, to say, hey, we need you to come and pour everything you have over over a week's time, and I'm gonna just like phone it in and make some fluffy crap. I didn't want to do that once I spoke with them and knew how like hardcore they were,
Yeah, definitely. So are there future projects planned for that series of those riders?
With those riders, we don't have anything planned as of right now. Again, it was one of those things where actually as we were in post-production, talking with Mikey, who kind of has some opportunities to do some stuff, and he was talking, he's like, oh, there's this ice race in Russia, like we could try to do something there, or there's this other thing, like there's this cannonball race, like we should do something. And I'm like, yeah. And then obviously, March 2020 hits, and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe sometime, maybe eventually. So we still stay in contact, like exactly like we've talked about, right? You have the time, this such an intimate experience, you're spending so much time with these people. It's like, these are people that I still follow and talk to, every week in some regards. So I really want to be able to make more content with them down the line. It's just about finding a time that we're allowed to.
Yeah, for sure. It's changed everybody's plans.
Totally.
All right. So David Porteous, the auteur filmmaker of 257 Down. So do you want to talk a little bit about your project and how this came about? It's about Alex Abbott, who's a competitive freestyle motocross rider who breaks his neck and becomes a quadriplegic, and just shy of his 10th anniversary, he attempts to get back on the bike. Can you sort of, I mean, you can do more justice to it than that, I think. That's sort of the Coles Notes version, but do you want to tell us what it's about and how you came involved?
Yeah, so I've known Alex for maybe about 5 or 6 years, and he has his bike in his room, and it's always been sitting there. Obviously, he wants to be close to that history that he had with riding. He loved it. It was a big part of his life. Especially when you're, a teenager going into your 20s, and you find a passion. That's it. That's your life. It's the same with me with music and film, and I'm sure everybody else in this room has very similar experiences. You really find out who you are and what you want to do with your life. So for Alex, having that accident and then not being able to do it and not having it be a consideration it's a big blow for anybody to deal with, to lose their passion and lose access to it. So he was starting to talk with some of his friends. 10 years is coming up. I really want to get back on the bike again. And obviously there was hesitation from even Alex and his family. What happens if he gets hurt? But at the end of the day, I think everybody that was involved had realized, what, this is something that Alex really wants to do. This would be good for him. It's his decision. He wants help to be able to actually facilitate this. So we're going to do our best to be able to do that. So he asked me to come out and take some pictures and, just film some things. And I had no intention whatsoever of making a documentary film. And I would say 99.9% of films that get made, there's, you think about it before you start shooting, you come up with kind of a narrative and an arc, and you get kind of an idea as to what you want to be able to present to an audience. And here I am sitting there watching him get dressed, get ready to go out and actually doing this thing, and feeling the energy that everybody had there, and thinking, this is something I have to scramble together and try my best to be able to capture this. And that was definitely a unique experience for myself. But I think a lot of filmmakers or artists or people who ride motorcycles, whatever, you like feeling a little bit on the edge. You don't want to be doing anything too stupid, but you want to feel a little bit of pressure, because it pushes people to be able to get the most out of what their capacity is. So I captured as much as I possibly could from that day, and luckily I was there with Jen Abbott, who has done some cam work with me before in the past. We worked on a project together called The Six. And I was able to get enough footage to be able to put a documentary film together. And it was a very moving experience to be there in that moment and not know what was going to happen, and also trying to capture it. So that was definitely a first in my books. And it's definitely not a common thing for filmmakers to go, I'll make a film right now. That's not a normal course of events. Otherwise there'd be films being made all the time. But it was kind of right place, right time. And the nice thing was I knew Alex. So there was that trust that was defined ahead of time, because that's the other thing with documentary filmmakers. It's really hard to be able to be the fly on the wall without them actually noticing what you're doing. But because everybody knew I was already there and they weren't thinking I was making a documentary film, I was able to get a little more raw honesty. People weren't concerned about what I was doing. They were all focused on helping Alex. So I felt I got lucky on that one.
How did you, like, being friends with him, having a relationship with him, how did you balance wanting to capture footage but also being there to experience such a special moment?
Fortunately for me, from my perspective, I don't have any experience with mechanics. So his friends who were there were helping try to do very subtle things to modify his bike. I couldn't even reiterate exactly what they had done, but very subtle things. Just mostly with the throttles so he would be able to use it, because he can't use both of his hands fully. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to take it in, because I'm very well aware, like, we spend way too much time on our phones. We spend way too much time on the internet, and so much time away from actual living life. And we're all guilty of doing that, because these things are very addictive. But I've really tried my best in the last couple of years to switch away from technology. And if I'm in a moment, try to sit there and take it in. So that's what I was doing with Alex. So it was kind of like a battle of, like, I want to be able to watch this and witness this and be there for him. But I also felt compelled to be able to capture it for him, because it's one thing for him to be able to do it, and we didn't know if he could do it, and we're waiting to see if he can do it. And there's a lot on the line. But I thought, you know what, if he's going to be successful with this, how great would it be to have some footage of this, something well put together as best as I possibly could. So if anything, I did it for him, because he deserved it, because he was trying his best to do what he could.
For sure. And so did it give him, I'm sure, I can't even fathom, and I don't want to experience it personally. I don't wish it on anybody. I'm sure he has experienced, mental, emotional challenges through his journey, being a quadriplegic. Did it give him a boost, like, that day? Like, you could see the elation, where did he want to go after that? Like, he wants to get back on the bike again, right?
Well, the sky's the limit now. That's the problem. The proverbial can of worms has been opened up, and it's just, maybe I should go racing. Maybe I should do some jumps. And there's no reason why he can't think of doing anything and everything. It's no different from anybody else. It's like if he goes out there and he wants to race, obviously he's at more of a risk than somebody else who's not not a quadriplegic or dealing with quadriplegia. So, but it's his life, and he's entitled to make his decisions and do what he wants. And he's a smart kid. And what I found interesting after making this documentary, we started talking about a project that he's been trying to work on for a while, something that's been in the back of his mind, and it's World War history related. And we've been working together on that. And we were actually able to pitch to Netflix. Out of the 10,000 submissions to Open Pitch Day, we were one of 100 that got selected to be able to pitch to them. And we're working on this documentary series that is kind of a mix of World War history and accessibility history. And it's something that I'm super excited about. Like, it's really great to be able to work on stuff that you find interesting, and you're not just doing it because, I need this gig, or, so I'm fortunate in that case that I was able to capture this really nice moment for him, and then open up this other can of worms creatively, where we could go off and work together on a project. Because I love Alex because he's a really smart guy, and he's really with it in terms of creative capacity. Because a lot of people that I know, if you ask them, oh, what do you think about this shot, or what, they don't understand that extra kind of level that you need to be able to actually make art or create it. And everyone in this room will understand that, they show something to their friend of theirs and they're like, oh, I don't like the color on that. And it's like, shut, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, he doesn't have any experience doing this, but he gets it. So I'm looking forward to be able to work on this project with him.
Nice. Yeah, he seems like a really interesting, engaging guy. And it was funny because at the film festival, when he was talking about like, oh, I want to be, maybe the first guy to like do a backflip on a quad that I could have like modified. And I was like, oh my God, like in one sense, like I'm balanced of like, in one sense, I'm like, I really hope he does it. And in the other sense, I'm like, it scares the crap out of me thinking about it. I'm like putting myself in his parents' shoes, being like, oh my goodness, how do they get any sleep at night?
And that is the nature of anything kind of motorsports related. Like I'm heavily invested into motorsports, love IndyCar, I love all aspects of that, of the sport. And I have no, I've never ridden a motorcycle before. I think I'm too much of a musician to ride one. Too emotional, just like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Alex is trying to pressure. He's pressuring me into trying it, but I don't know. So, but with these things, it's like you're saying, you're like, yeah, you want to be able to see him succeed, but you don't know. You're kind of mixed feelings. It's like, well, that's, freestyle riding. That's Moto GP. That's Indy 500. That's any of those acts. But life is worth living. And there's also a certain degree where we got to take some chances with our life, because you're not going to get the most out of it if you don't.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. Everyone takes risks, calculated or not. And so, that's certainly up to him to make that decision. So I hope that he manages to inspire you to start riding, because, So how did he react to seeing the film?
It was really interesting because I think it really came together when we were actually able to see it in a theater, because like, oh, this is actually something. This is a record. It's a permanent record of something that I achieved. And that's why I love making films. That's why I love making music and creating something, because it's there forever. And anybody who's creative will understand that. It's, I put some time and energy into this. I put some sweat. I sat on the back of a motorcycle and I felt scared and all this. You put yourself out there and you put your energy and effort into it. And at the end of the day, you have something that's there forever. And that I've been through that experience before, listening to records or watching a film that I've made or something like that. But for Alex, this was kind of a moment of like, oh, wow, yeah, this is real. It's not just some YouTube video. It's something tangible. And,
for sure.
And when you're involved in something like that and you haven't been before, I think it's good food for the soul, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, now more than ever, we can use inspiring stories, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And especially for accessibility, it's not a topic of conversation that comes around in the mainstream. And I've never understood why. I don't, and it's not just from meeting Alex. It's just, why wouldn't we want to make the world a more accessible place? It just it would make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, certainly. How would you approach the film if you were to do it again with the hindsight that you now have? Like, if you'd had the foresight to know kind of like what was going to happen, how would you have done it differently?
I think like most filmmakers, if you had the time and if you had any kind of a budget, and you had the capacity to be able to gather people involved, you would try your best to cover all angles, have a few cameras and maybe a little bit better sound, and prepare in terms of like how you wanted to shoot it. But I think if that was the case, there would have been some magic lost from it, because I was very much in the moment trying my best to like scramble to get it all together, as was everybody else who was there, who was just kind of living moment by moment. Like we were all just, no one that was there was an expert in terms of having somebody dealing with quadriplegia getting on a bike. When this is something that we didn't experience. We were all just trying to help Alex out. So I think if there was a lot of planning and preparation ahead of time, it could have taken away from a bit of the rush, the magic of the sitting on the edge of things.
That was going to be my next point, actually, is that, do you think that it was actually good that you filmed it the way that you did? Because, sometimes people can sort of freeze up or play to the camera or things like that.
Absolutely. People get really funny with cameras. I mean, I grew up with a mother who was taking photographs of us every day, and this is in the 80s, mind you. So if you want to see what I did on March 7th at 4 p.m., there's probably a photograph on that time, you know. So I got used to that kind of experience of being around cameras, but people get really funny once you start filming, especially if you say that it's going to be for something, for a documentary, because everyone's so afraid, oh, I'm going to look stupid. And a lot of people don't know documentary filmmakers. They don't want to make people look stupid. They want to capture the beauty of people's capacity. You know, we want to capture the best moments, not the worst moments of someone's life. You know, because why are we filming that? There's no point. They go on TikTok. That's that's the worst of everyone's life. So I think I was lucky because I knew everybody that was there, so they weren't watching me, but I was able to watch them. And I was able to be the fly on the wall.
That's good, yeah. And they weren't playing to the camera or intimidated by it, and it happened organically.
Exactly. So I got lucky.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me was the gravity of it wasn't just him getting on a motorcycle. It was him getting on the motorcycle. So this motorcycle, it was the first time that he, as I understand, had fired it up in almost 10 years. And it was the motorcycle that landed on him that, you know, almost killed him.
It wasn't the bike that he got injured on, but it was.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. I thought it was as well.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't until afterwards, after we filmed this, that I had learned that also. But it was his bike, and that was the bike he would do all his tricks on. So the first time, and you can see it in the film when they started up, that's the first time it's starting up, and he's sitting on it.
Right,
so that's the first time he gets to hear that and get that feeling, and all those sensations would come flooding back. And that would be such a rush.
Yeah. It was such a visceral reaction that he had.
Absolutely.
Which is what made me think that it was the actual bike, because it was such a strong elation, and there was so much gravity to it.
Well, imagine sitting there having this bike in your room for 10 years and not knowing if, like, kind of assuming that this is the past, you know, this is just a memory, this is a photograph. And then having that moment like, oh no, this is happening now. This is still a part of my life. And I think that was really interesting. And I love that he was able to do that. I just want to say thanks to everybody who had helped them put that together in terms of like being able to get him back on the bike. It's really cool when humans come together and work towards something for somebody. And it was just a really nice moment to be able to be there. And I got lucky that I had a camera with me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you did. Now, having it come up to the 10th anniversary, was that sort of the precipice of him being like, it's now or never? Or was there some sort of, like Angie talks about, you know, being diagnosed with breast cancer being a transformative moment, but was there something that made him, that kind of tweaked it, of like, now is the time?
He figured if he was going to do it at all, he might as well do it now. And I know every anniversary that he would have to deal with, it would be quite a struggle, because it would be such negativity associated with it. Obviously, so much emotion, having to kind of relive those dates, and you know, you get the feelings of the time of year and the weather, and all these memories. Like right now, the weather feels like back to school. So for that day and that time, it would be such difficulty going through that. But now, because he was able to do that, it's like, oh yeah, this feels like when we made that film, and I was able to actually get back on it again. So he's been able to turn that story around, and I think that's really powerful. And I've seen him go from being very cautious about what he wants to do with his life to now being like, no, I want to go out there and do what I want to do. And that's what everybody should be doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's absolutely amazing to hear. So yeah, we are at an hour and 5 minutes. We should probably start wrapping it up soon. It looks like we have another question here from the side. The question from Blair Scarlett: did Don Cherry pick my hat and my T-shirt? No, it's just in my closet. I picked it. I can get dressed by myself sometimes. But thank you, Blair. So yeah, I guess we can go around to everybody and say, final shout outs of, what's next. If you guys want to pitch or promote your projects of what's coming up next, or anything that you want to add. Genevieve, if you'd like to go first.
What's next for me?
yeah, if there's anything you'd like to say to wrap up about the project or about what's next.
Well, first of all, thanks to everybody to share their stories about how they did their amazing project. It's really inspiring, and shout out. For me, tell people's story again and again. And right now, I'm writing for a future film. How do you say that in
Feature
English?
film?
Am I correct? Yeah.
You are, we?
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. And Chris, working on a horror film. Is there anything you can tell us about it, or?
Yeah, it's been a nightmare, but we'll soldier through it. It's not like documentary filmmaking, believe me. When I kind of just take all my equipment out and go off for a day and enjoy meeting people and shooting and enjoying myself. And yeah, this has been it's been a challenge to say the least. I currently am working as an illustrator for the Métis Nation of Ontario in the education sector, drawing books and memory card games and flashcards to help perpetuate the language and the culture and the traditions. I'm producing a sequel to the film Project Cold Days about homeless people in Ottawa. I got lots on the go.
Wow, it sounds like it.
Yeah, there's a time limit on these bodies, I find, and the older I get, the more I think, it's put up or shut up. Get going on it now, and and then eventually we'll shift gears and maybe write a book and get rid of the equipment and end this craziness and that. But I'm loving it right now.
Nice. Jason.
Yeah. I'm going on a motorcycle trip. I'm going on a trip, and I'm actually going to be directing / riding in it. So that starts on Monday. I have no faith that anything is ready to go. And I'm also, it's a project that I'm shooting, kind of a thank you to my dad for introducing motorcycles to me as a kid. And so he's coming with me. And I think that in itself is giving me tons of anxiety for him to have to realize that I'm going to be the one in charge for the first time.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. He's already calling me with all sorts of his ideas that he's going to be putting onto the cast and crew. So
okay.
We'll
wow.
Is it going to be like what's his name, Jack Whitehall, the Travels with My Father?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. It's
okay.
going to be.
Check it out. It's on Netflix, I think. It's a
Yeah.
British comedian that travels with his very uptight father. It's quite funny.
It'll be that then. That's it's going to be what it is. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
All right, awesome. Well, I wish both of you luck and safe travels.
Thank you,
David.
I'm working on a bunch of music projects at the moment, and I have a really exciting music single coming out that I'm helping someone put together that will come out mid-November. And obviously, Alex and I are working on our travel documentary series. So if anybody out there watching has a few $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 you want to spare, send to me. You can use PayPal. PayPal is great. It goes to me digitally. That'd be great. But all jokes aside, I just want to say thanks to everybody for being a part of this festival, and to Kais for putting this together. And I love seeing, obviously I love being around documentary filmmakers and artists and creative people. It's not an easy thing to do. But I think it's great that everybody out there is going out there and still doing it, as difficult as it may be. And hopefully at some point we might eventually be able to get paid minimum wage to do all this stuff. Fingers crossed, dreams can happen.
Totally. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that too, and I'll check under my couch cushions to see if I can find a spare $400,000 or $500,000.
Gold bullion, bars of gold. Please, I'm not asking for a lot. Million.
PayPal or gold bullion.
Yeah, please.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening, and everybody at home as well who's been watching us on Facebook and YouTube. This has been the All Canadian Q&A of TMFF Talks, and visit torontomotofilmfest.com for more information, or to watch any of these films online. And you should definitely check them out now that you have a little bit of context behind them. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us and for watching. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.